That said, if you were like unsatisfied with what the Phoenix Suns were putting on the court as a product the last couple of seasons, I think there's a possibility that what you see this season will, if nothing else, be more worth your time and your dollar, right? Your energy. Thanks so much for having me, man. It's a pleasure to be a new friend of the program.
Yeah, I don't make many new friends, so it is something different for me, but I appreciate it. And I got to pick your brain. There's a lot of national
Sure.
people that aren't big fans of the Suns and what they did in the offseason. Why is that? And are you of that mindset, or do you have a little more optimism when it comes to this Phoenix Suns crew?
I think you got to thread the needle a little bit. I think people are not big fans of, to the extent that people are not big fans of what happened during the offseason, it's because like it's not fun to see what's underneath when you rip off the Band-Aid, you know? I think everyone understands why the moves that happened in the offseason were made, particularly from moving on from Bradley Beal, deciding you need to sort of reset the culture, moving on from Kevin Durant after the attempt to trade him behind, surreptitiously in the middle of the season didn't go so hot, and saying, listen, this hasn't worked. We got to hit the eject button and reset. The functions of how that happened are painful, right? And I mean, the stretch and wave on Bradley Beal, you wind up with, paying him for the next handful of years, this roster charge that you're not going to be able to maneuver around. The trade in terms of you're trading from a position of weakness with Houston in terms of what you get back. So you don't wind up with a commensurate package to what you sent out, even if there's a lot to like about Kaman Malawach and some of the other pieces that came back. So I think you look at it and say, it doesn't feel like an overwhelming, we're going to be right back in the thick of things where we want to be. And so, you wind up on the losers list of the winners and losers columns, right? That said, if you were like unsatisfied with what the Phoenix Suns were putting on the court as a product the last couple of seasons, I think there's a possibility that what you see this season will, if nothing else, be more worth your time and your dollar, right? Your energy. The idea that you're going to reorient around a more physical, a more athletic, a more defensive oriented kind of team, and doubling down on like the thing we know that works and that we know we love is Devin Booker. So let's throw like everything we can at Devin Booker surrounded by shooting and dogs and athletes and see what happens. And like, does that mean you're going to run into 45 wins? I don't know, probably not. But if nothing else, I think it won't feel as sour as the last couple of years were. And if nothing else, that's a start.
I appreciate that perspective because that's kind of what I've been saying. I don't think they're going to be world beaters, but we're going to feel a heck of a lot better while watching this team. I mean, are you a believer in addition by subtraction in sports? I know it's a cliche, but sometimes I feel like, at least from a fan base perspective, that can help.
Absolutely. And it's that old sort of saying, right? Like, the best time to plant a tree is yesterday and the next best time is right now. I guess, no Kawhi. But like the idea being, if you know that what's good, that this isn't working, and you know that like you are out of optimism that what the current construction of the roster is and the current sort of alchemy of the personalities and whatever else, if you are out of feeling like this is gonna work, then you gotta change. You gotta find a way to change. If you are out of like natural, easy ways to do that through free agency or through draft picks because of, the wages of moves past, then you got to find creative ways to do it, or like bite down hard on the spoon and like deal with some pain to do it. But you're not going to grow if everything stays the same. And so while obviously you're not going to be a better offensive team after saying goodbye to Kevin Durant, or even like the diminished version of Bradley Beal, you can be a different one in a way that can be, oriented toward growth and instructive. And you can say, if we decide like what were the Phoenix Suns of the last 2 years, if you had to like predicated on an identity, what was that team intended to be? I don't know that anybody could give you a really good answer as to like what the positive case for it was outside of all three of these guys have cool basketball reference pages. And so the idea that now you're saying there is an identity, there is a thought process of what we want to be. It's going to be built defense out. It's going to be built attitudinally, and it's going to be built around Devin Booker surrounded by athletes and shooting. How successful that will be, I don't know, but it's at least an ethos, right? It's a direction to move toward. It's a star in the sky to follow. And I think coming off of what felt like directionless bummers of years, that's not nothing. That's something to be, to at least rally around. And, who knows? You get off to a hot start. You catch lightning in a bottle a little bit in the middle of the season. Jared Butler certainly turns into Luka, and then who knows where you can wind up after that.
Yeah, I feel like the identity the last few years is a few names that look good on a marquee. I feel like that was essentially the identity. One of the names that they got back, though, in that Kevin Durant trade is Jalen Green. Obviously, didn't play in the preseason, going to be out at least a few more games with that hamstring injury. But what is your overall take on Jalen Green, his game, and how he might fit in Phoenix?
Jalen Green's what, the king of March, right? We've seen these stretches from Jalen Green where it's like a superhero who doesn't have the instruction manual to his suit, right? Like if someone gave you the Iron Man armor, but you weren't sure how to do it, what buttons to push. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, if I do that, then this works. And then he's averaging 28 for a month on like 45% 3-point shooting on 10 attempts a game. And then he loses the instructions. And you're like, oh man. So, limitless talent. The athleticism pops off the screen, the ability to get where he wants to pretty much whenever he wants to with his handle. He can find his shot no matter what. The finer points of how to operate an efficient NBA offense have largely thus far eluded him. And some of that is context. You come in at a G League Ignite to a pretty like no hope post Harden Rockets roster for a couple of years. And then the context around you changes dramatically with the introduction of Ime Udoka, of Fred VanVleet to be that runner of the offense. And like getting in where you fit in there is a little bit more challenging. But I think it's instructive too. Like he didn't lose minutes dramatically. I mean, in playoff series, I think he did wind up, Udoka went away from him a little bit, but he stayed on the floor for a coach who harbors like no fools and no silliness and is like, if you don't defend and if you don't do things the way we want you to do them, you will not play. I don't care where you were drafted because I didn't draft you. And he stayed on the court and stayed in the rotation for a playoff team, a 50-win team under Ime Udoka. And that's not nothing. Like that's something that it leads me to believe there is seriousness in there. And if you combine that with the athletic gifts, the size, the length, the quickness, the agility, the hops, and the ability to like, it looks easy for him to get 25 some nights. And so like you combine all those things together, you add a little bit of seasoning and time, you have him working with Book, somebody who has made the most out of a lot of us of that kind of skill set. I think the ceiling is awfully high. I think the fact that you're dealing with nagging hamstring issue that does not allow you to get reps right now with Booker in that 2-guard backcourt where like that's a real bummer because we've seen how gummy it looked at times where, you didn't have Book with Beal quite enough, or you didn't have the two of them with KD quite enough. Like you need everybody, as very basic analysis, but it's true. You need everybody on the floor to be able to figure out, all right, if you have the ball and I'm spotting up over here, when you're making this move, where do I need to be? Do I need to shake? Do I need to drift? And like, should I be cutting off behind that? Like, where do when I get the ball in a second side action after you've bent it, what's my best move? And that stuff you only figure out when you're in the thick of it, in the heat of it. So not having Book get that opportunity with Jalen Green, with Mark Williams as they're managing that situation, that I think puts the potential for the offense behind the 8 ball a little bit. But when he gets on the court, I think Green is the kind of player who I would imagine will be motivated by like this. They thought they had to get rid of you to get to the next level. And this is an opportunity for you to show that you are exactly who you think you've been and that they made a grave error in moving on from you.
You bring up Devin Booker. A lot of people will say he's taken a step back. I'm not a believer in that. I think he, again, did what he needed to do. But do you stand on Devin Booker going into this season and what he's going to be able to accomplish with a team that, as you mentioned earlier, is now built solely around him?
Well, I wrote our Phoenix Suns season preview for Yahoo Sports. We're doing a whole series of them. You can go check those out on the website. And in each of them, you have like a best case scenario, worst case scenario for us. So for the best case scenario, I was like, I think the best case scenario here is like Devin Booker goes full on, like rages throughout the whole season. And it's like career highs in scoring and assists and like first team all NBA. Like the structure here is like, it will rise or fall with how well he, with his production, essentially his availability and his consistency, his efficiency and his production. I think he walks into pretty much every season as a potential All NBA player. Like when I think of Devin Booker, just like general table stakes where he lands, my starting point is like All NBA second team, and then it can go up or down from there. That's kind of where I think of him in the context of the league, fringe top 10 player. At his healthiest and at his most sort of in rhythm, he can break down damn near any defense you put in front of him, and he can elevate guys along the way to that. I think and I'm sure you guys have talked about it a bunch, the idea of like point book and like how much do you put behind that. Obviously, the best versions of the Suns in recent vintage were not built around that. They were built around Chris Paul next to him. But generally speaking, with the exception of last season, I think the numbers were pretty negative when he was the lone point guard there. I think it's been a pretty positive lineup for them in a lot of different constructions, obviously in limited minutes, but over the course of a handful of years. And it just makes sense. Like this is, I mean, I guess again, if you get the Jared Butler against the Lakers in preseason, then that guy deserves to be on the floor all the time. Put him at the one no matter what. But I think he's your best advantage creator. He's probably your best passer, with the exception of, maybe Colin Gillespie and Jared Butler when he's got it going. And so like, if you're going to build, define yourself by anything and build yourself around anything, give that guy the ball, spread it out for him, give him a steady diet of screen and roll bigs. Like all of the bigs that they've got should be able to work with him in the 2-man game, get downhill and give him either a lob target or some room. And then, in terms of 3-level scorers, there just aren't that many better. So I'm optimistic for what he can do this season. I think he views this as an opportunity to remind people and to say, like, listen, whatever else is changing around me, I'm not changing. I'm 10 toes down here. I committed to that with the extension. I've committed to being here and being the guy that's going to get this right again. And here's how we're going to do it. I'm going to throw myself at the problem every night. And more often than not, I'm going to put up an awful lot of points in the process.
Can I throw a curveball at you? I know you're an NBA guy, but we were talking
Sure.
about something earlier, and I need an opinion. Kevin, can we put up the graphic of what was unveiled last night, if you have that again? This is the new Utah Mammoth mascot named Tusky. I need a third opinion because my producer and I are split on what we make of this guy. What do you make of this mascot?
I don't like his eyebrows. I'm going to say that right off the rip. I feel like the brow is furrowed in a way that makes me concerned. And I suppose that's part of it, right? You want the mascot to be an intimidator of the visitors, the incoming team, but you also want the mascot to be someone that the kids want to go up and take a picture with. And pointy tusks and mean brow, I don't like it. I mean, we've seen in the NBA some pretty, gnarly first effort mascots, like Pierre the Pelican, the Brooklyn Knight for the Nets when they got into Barclays Center. And sometimes you need to go back to the drawing board and adjust some things. I wonder if Tusky winds up going through some revisions over time, but I do like the color scheme. And I do like the idea that if you are going to be a mammoth, you got to have some sharp tusks. I mean, it's part of it. So, but yeah, the eyes don't look friendly. The eyes look angry in a way that I don't think is going to help the kids. That's my first blush reaction.
Dan, did we just become best friends? Because I said almost exactly that. Tell the people how they can find you and find all your great work with Yahoo Sports.
Yeah, sure. YahooSports.com, the NBA page there. I'm all over it. We've written an awful lot of previews and we'll be writing more on social media across platforms at Your Man Devine. And you can listen to The Big Number, which is a podcast that Tom Haberstroh lovingly lets me co-host with him every week on Yahoo Sports, yahoosports.tv, our fast channel. I'm all over the place. I'm maybe in too many places and I should pare back, but this is not the time of year or the market in which to do it. So absolutely a pleasure to join you. Thanks so much for having me.
He is my man, Devine. Thank you again, Dan. Have a good weekend and enjoy the start of the NBA season.